At some point in his life, every man worth his salt must ask himself a searching question. Do I have what it takes? Am I worthy? As men, we are put here to achieve, to build, to leave behind something that will last. George Washington was entrusted with the extraordinary task of founding a nation, but before he could know he was up to it, he was tested at a place called Fort Necessity. That test is what put him on the road to becoming the father of our country. We must withstand tests because knowing the answer to that question, do I have what it takes, not guessing, not speculating, but knowing, is the difference between collapse and triumph in moments like the long winter at Valley Forge. Washington was called upon to achieve the miraculous, but what of the few among us who are called to achieve the impossible? What kind of test can reveal whether a man with that calling is truly fit for it? Those questions are swept aside in our far softer age, an age when too many men are content to forego the tests, forego the building, forego the legacy for the sake of easy comfort and momentary pleasures. For such men, it is easy to scoff at the impossible test, given to one of the few men in history who could be entrusted with an impossible mission. Rather than bothering to wrestle with it, they sweep it away, as Christopher Hitchens did in this clip.
And not scorning the three delightful children who result, who are everything to me and who are my only chance of even a glimpse of a second life, let alone an immortal one. And I'll tell you something, if I was told to sacrifice them to prove my devotion to God, if I was told to do what all monotheists are told to do, and admire the man who said, yes, I'll gut my kid to show my love of God, I'd say no, f*** you.
With so many misunderstandings in one short clip, it's hard to know where to begin. Let's start with Hitchens' central assumption, that he knew what he was talking about. He assumed the test given to Abraham was a demand to commit an atrocity for God's sadistic glee. But God never told Abraham to gut his son. The command was, Ya'alehu sham la'olah, bring him up as an elevation offering. Some translations will call it a burnt offering, but that's not a literal translation. Neither murder nor burning are mentioned anywhere in the passage. So, doesn't bringing him up as an offering mean that Isaac was going to die? Well, here's a clue. There's an entire tractate of the Talmud called Temurah. If you figure out what's relevant about that tractate, leave it in the comments. I'll say this. The logic of that body of law in Tractate Temurah makes an airtight case that God never told Abraham to kill Isaac. So, why the test? Why would God ask this of Abraham? The scholarly discussion is extensive, but here's a perspective anyone can use in their own journey of growth and improvement. The training must always fit the task. Abraham's task was to found a nation. That nation's task was to carry a message, not for a few years, but for thousands of years, against every hazard the world would impose. And it was to be the single least popular message in human history. You've heard the phrase, shoot the messenger? That was the reality from the very beginning. For an ordinary task, ordinary tests are enough. For an extraordinary task, an extraordinary test is needed. And Abraham's people were entrusted with an impossible task. And that requires the most extraordinary test of all. Because again and again, Jewish mothers and fathers have looked at their children asleep in their cribs and thought, I will hand off the message that God entrusted to us, to this little one. And then reality intrudes. Someone who doesn't want that message to survive has his say. And the child is taken to the altar. But the message must go on, come hell or high water. It cannot die. That was not a one-time test. It was a test that would recur, literally thousands of times, even before the National Socialists in Germany waged their war against our people. The Holocaust has been the subject of countless books and movies, and yet Nazi and Hitler have become little more than cheap political insults thrown around to score points. and stalk political outrage. In that way, we trivialize the indescribable horror that was actually perpetrated. Familiarity has led us to sweep the real stories aside, treating them as background noise. But the truth cannot be swept away. It lives on in the stories of men like the Klausenberger Rebbe. He entered Auschwitz with his wife and 11 children, and when he walked out of the DP camps, he was alone. Every face he loved, gone. Every child he held, gone. And yet he rebuilt. He remarried. He had more children. He restored the Klausenberger dynasty. He founded schools, communities, hospitals. Rebuilding was impossible, but he refused to let the mission of Abraham die on that altar. That was what Abraham's test was about. God wanted Abraham to know that what he was made of, so that Abraham, and Isaac too, and all who came after them could face a hostile world with a confidence that they could carry the message through to the end. Abraham could have said, "You told me to found a nation and that it would descend through my son Isaac, and now you're telling me to offer him up. How is it possible to found a nation if my son is to become an offering?" And the answer was, "You'll see, it is possible, because I have made you fit for the task." And as we stand at this juncture of history, when the future seems dark and the mission entrusted to us seems beyond our strength, we know how it will succeed, because we have been tested and we have what it takes. We have what it takes to accomplish the impossible. It was impossible for an exiled nation to survive dozens of brushes with extinction over thousands of years. It was impossible for a nation that was exiled 2,000 years ago to return to its land. It was impossible to revive a dead language. It was impossible for an outnumbered and virtually unarmed band of survivors from the worst genocide in history to fight alone and defeat the combined forces of 5 nations that attacked it. Impossible, impossible, impossible. Abraham showed us it was possible. The Klausenberger showed us it was possible. And now it's our turn. If you want more content like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for your attention.